Hey all, how's it going? It is Lawrence from Express Unity, and today we are going to be continuing our multiplayer FPS tutorial. We will be focusing on spawning our first two players into our map once we load the free-for-all. On top of that, we're just going to be cleaning up how this UI loads, because at the moment it loads as soon as you go into the scene when we want it to actually show up after PlayFab is connecting. Or finished connecting, rather. So, what we want right now is... so, let's go ahead and, not the UI scripts, network scripts. Let's open Multiplayer Manager. Excuse me. Alright, so we have our onConnect master. So what we want to do is, yeah, so we want to have a public game object array, and we're going to call this enable objects on connect. So basically we can have disabled objects inside this array, and we want it to loop through all of these objects on connect and enable them. So let's just make a simple for each of game objects, just gonna call it object, and an enable objects on connect. All we have to do here is object.setActive to true. So now what we can do, save all that, minimize, and let's just add our UI into that new array. Okay. So right now it's just this actions panel. We can quite literally just drag and drop that onto the array. So if we start this off as being disabled and we now play, it should pop up. There it is once we connect to Photon. So now we actually want to make just some text just to tell the user I'm connecting to Photon. So I'm just going to call this connecting text, and we'll just scale it up, and I'm going to go best fit and center it. Oh, make it bigger. Max size we want to change to like 100. Alright, so we'll just say something like connecting to server. Something like that. And I'm just going to change the color to white and give this an outline. Make the outline a little thicker and have it no transparency at all. So now we want to do the opposite. So instead of having enable objects on connect, we want to disable objects on connect. So copy and paste the for, and we'll just change the name to the new array we created, which is disable on connect, and set active we want to set the false, because any object that is here we want it to disable when we are connected. So we can do the same once it compiles. Just drag our text onto the array. Sorry, I'm coming down with a little bit of a cold, I think. But yeah, there you are. So if we go and go into our... Oh, actually, the next thing we want to do is we actually haven't set anchors for any of our UI. I don't actually think we've set a size either, so we need to actually scale our UI with screen, and I'm going to set it to my current aspect ratio. And then on top of that, we want to actually anchor all of these to the center, like so, and then we need to do all of that for every other scene, because we've actually forgotten to set our anchors. So same for the register, we need to set, well, not that, we've actually set it for that. What about the anchor? Okay, anchor set. That's correct. Okay, I think it's just all the new UI that I haven't done. So that's okay, that's good to know. So I'm gonna go to the master scene, see if we have. Okay, I haven't done it in the master scene either, so I'm just gonna set that to the resolution on my screen, and I'm just gonna set it to center. So now when we actually play the game, there shouldn't be any UI clipping outside. And a good way to test whether it's working is to change the aspect ratio of the screen in game to see what happens. And it should stay basically scaled correctly. Alright, so let's log in. Oops. If we log in, connecting to server, shows the UI once connected. If we create slash join, then it takes us to this scene. So, what we want to do in our game modes and our new free-for-all scene, I'm going to remove this cube and let me just see real quick. So I'm gonna open up the multiplayer manager script, and so we currently we connect the photon, we connect to the master server. On join fail, we create a room and then we load scene free for all. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure if it still connects. We'll find out. We'll find out. So, what I'm gonna do, we're gonna start on a player controller. So let's create a capsule, and I'm just gonna bring it closer. And then I'm gonna drag and drop the main camera into the capsule, and I'm going to reset its position. Then going to just drag camera to a reasonable position, and there should already be a capsule collider. There is. That is great. So we're just going to tag it player. We are then going to add the rigid body component, and we are going to constrain all of its rotation. We're also going to want to give it maybe a drag of 3, and I think that should be good. So in the network scripts, I'm now going to create a new folder, and I'm just going to call it player, and this will contain all our scripts to do with the player. And the first script I'm just going to call movement. I don't know why Visual Studio always opens up whenever I create a new script. I don't double click it or anything like that, and now it looks like it's about to crash, so it's 10 out of 10. So I just want to drag and drop the movement script there. Let's see if this fixes itself. Alright. Yeah, like it hasn't even opened it. I don't know why it pops up. It's so weird. Let's open the movement script. Excuse me. Oh, another thing we have to add, sorry, is we want to add a photon view. And then we want to add the photon transform view, and we just want to make that an observed component, just so that when we test it, we can see each other move around and whatnot. I'm also going to just give the player a name on the object. So now, let's go and start coding this. So I want to be using photon. I then want to be inheriting from monobehavior_pun. We also want to use photon.pun. Okay, so I'm going to make a private float move speed. Just gonna set this to like 50 by default, but we are gonna want to make this a serialized field so that we can actually edit this inside the editor. The next thing I'm going to do is say if photon view.isMine, then this is where all the movement logic is gonna go. So let's create a few publics. So public code, gonna say left, and then we're just gonna do the same for all our other keys. So left, right, forward, backward. So now, let's go. Let's see. So if we just want to say if input dot get key left, and oh, another thing we want to do, sorry, is we want to make a private, a private rigid body, and I'm just going to call this body. And then in start, I'm going to say body equals get component rigid body. So now over here, I want to say body dot add relative force vector3 dot left, and then we want to times that by our move speed, and then we want to use the force mode dot impulse. Now let's copy and paste this for the right key. And let's just make the move speed a negative value. And let's do the same for the forward key. Now backwards key. So instead of it being vector3 dot left, it's going to be vector3 dot forward, and we can just say the same thing again because we're just using a negative value. Alright, and then over here we also want to change the key to right. Nice. So now we actually want to get a reference to our camera object. So I'm going to create a private game object. I'm just going to call it cam. Cam is now going to be equal to gameObject.transform.getChild.gameObject. So that is going to make the camera equal to the first child of the parent, which is our main camera. The camera should always be the first one in the player hierarchy like this. Any weapons and stuff should always be below, but if you want to be extra safe to make sure Unity can always find the camera object, you can always loop through all of the objects and find the tag, but I'd just find it easier and faster to just give Unity a direct reference to it. Could even make the variable public and drag and drop the camera there, but yeah, we won't do that for now. So another thing we want to do is so if let's go back to the code. So in the start, let's go if photon view dot is mine. Whoops, make sure it's a lowercase photon view dot is mine, or else. So if it's not our current view, then we want to set active for the camera to false, because we don't want anything to do with that camera. If it is our view, it's already active, so it doesn't matter, but just to make sure, we want to set the camera to true. If you don't do this, the cameras are always going to be left active, and so everyone's view will be switched to the last joined player. That's just how Unity runs. So now that we've done that, let's make a couple of floats. So we want float X, and then we want float Y. So X is going to be equal to input.getAxis, and we want to get mouse X. Y is the same, except we want to get the Y axis of the mouse. Like so. Excuse me. So now what we want to do is say gameObject.transform.rotate, and we want to rotate so new vector3, and I believe we pass the X on the Y, memory serves me correctly. It's really weird how this works. And then so that will handle our left and right rotation of the mouse. Now we want to get the up and down rotation of the camera. So camera.transform.rotate, And this time we want to set -y on the X and 0 on everything else. So that should now be a pretty basic first-person controller for us. So we can't actually test it right now because it's using Photon. So we're just gonna make it a prefab. Looks like we've got everything, so that's all good. Do I not have a prefabs folder? Yes, I don't. Alright, so let's create a new prefab. Actually, no. We want to create a resources folder. Resources. And so anything that's ever going to be spawned in playfab is going to need to be inside the resources folder here. So now let's create a new empty, and let's call it game manager. So the game manager is what is going to be held responsible for what your game mode actually is. So when you join a free-for-all match, the game manager, all it can do, right, all it needs to do is spawn a player in a random location. Whereas if it's team deathmatch, I want the game manager to show some UI that says, do you want to join team red or team blue? And then it'll select player blue or player red, so the colors are different. We could change the colors in script and sync it with everyone, but that would just be unneeded data that gets synchronized across the network. It's better to just have two players. One player could be red, one can be blue, and then depending on their team, you give them that selected player. Nothing is going to be different other than the fact that one is the color red and one is the color blue. Alright, so let's go ahead in our network and let's create a new script. Actually no, let's do this. Here it goes again. Alright, I'm gonna delete this. Oh, come on. I don't think Unity should actually compile when there's scripts with just this in it. It should wait until it's actually changed from what the default script is, so you don't need to wait for it to compile every time you make a new script. Anyway, in the networking scripts folder, I'm now going to create another folder called game modes. And now, within this game modes folder, I'm going to create another folder called free for all. So this is going to contain all our script logic for the game mode free for all. So we're going to make a game manager script. And this script will, oh actually no, rather, because we're going to want multiple scripts that handle the game, right? So if we just create two game manager scripts, you're going to get an error saying that there's already a reference to a class or something like that. So create the main script, the name of your game mode. So I'm just going to call it free for all. And then in the game manager object, I'm going to drag and drop that free for all. Here it is, because it hasn't compiled, it doesn't want to add it. Come on, let's go. I swear Unity never used to do this. It's only since it hit the 2018 phase of it that it started doing this weird compiling stuff for scripts. Kind of annoying, but oh well. Alright, so let's open that free for all script up. We want to be using Photon. We also want to be using photon.pun. We then want to be using monobehavior.pun, and we also want to inherit from the ipun observable. We can then right click this, quick actions, and implement interface. And basically what we're doing here is, I'm actually going to just copy and paste this underneath all this. So now what we can do here is we can set logic like timers and, well, I mean, what else? A kill score, I guess. But that should be handled on player anyway. But I think for now, all we need is a timer for game end. And I think for now, maybe we'll just make a timer for 4 minutes. But I also just want to get the player spawned in the game. So now I'm just going to quickly fill in the on Photon serialized view. So we're just going to say stream.isWriting. And then we're going to say else if stream.isReading. So we don't need to do anything else here for now, but we have it there for when we do need it. Another thing we need to do now that we have the observable component is we need to add a photon view onto the game manager once it compiles. So photon view, and then on the observed component we want to drag our new free-for-all script. Alright, now what we want to do is, so we're going to make a local timer. So we're just going to say float spawn, or we're going to call it start spawn time equals 0. Actually no, we can just make it a general one. So I'm just going to call it spawn time. Oops. Oh, no, this one is going to be called timer, sorry. And then we're going to make a public float called spawn time. And then in update, we want to say timer plus equals time.delta time. And then we'll say if timer is greater than or equal to spawn time, then we want to do something here, right? But we don't want to do it more than once. So we're just going to set timer back to 0. And then we're going to have a bool called has player spawned equal to false. And then we will just say if has not player spawned, then we do our spawn player logic. Otherwise we want to set player spawned to true so that this action never gets called again. And then what we want to do is create a public game object. No, sorry, that's not what we want to do. We don't need that. Instead, we can just say photon network.instantiate, and this is going to be our name in the resources, and we've pulled the player. The position is just, we're going to make it vector3.0 just for now. Rotation will be quaternium.identity, and I think we need to give it a byte group. I always set it to 0. I'm not actually 100% sure what that is as of yet. But yeah, for all my Photon games I've always set it to 0 and there's been no problems. Alrighty, so now what we want to do is create something for the players to actually walk on. So I'm going to create a plane. I'm going to scale it a little larger. Oh, come on, compile. Oop. So I'm going to scale it a little larger. I'm then going to set it to 0, 0, 0. But so the players don't fall through it, I'm also going to lower it. I don't know. That maybe. Alright, so this should hopefully work. So if we now save this and go to our master scene, if we log into our account, Photon should connect. We then create / join. Alright, so it has joined, controlled locally, so that's good. Camera, if we enable it, will be in the scene. But for some reason the camera isn't being enabled. So let's take a look at movement. We could just remove this entire part here and then just set the where is it? The resources, that's what I'm looking for. So, and then we should be able to just disable the camera like that. So if we go ahead and play that, let's see if that enables the camera. So let's give this a shot. Great, so let's join. Has created the player. The camera is not. Raise event failed. Your event is not being sent. Check if you're in a room. Multiple scene setup may be improved by attending to the following issues. Like that. Different script on behavior. Gamemode main missing. Reference script unknown. Behavior missing. What the heck does that even mean? The event is not being sent. You're in a room. I check if you're in a room. That's on line 23. Line 23. Interesting. Player is spawning. So, let's see, how can we do this? We don't need to instantiate the player first, do we? Let me just check something. So if we go to the multiplayer manager, when we create a room, do I need to spawn the player first before switching scene? Let me see. Log in. Set up all these missing behaviors. I'm just going to ignore because it isn't even telling me what script is missing. So let's connect. Let's join. If event is not being sent, check if you're in a room. Now we're in that script. Huh. So over here we are creating a room. Alright, so I'm going to undo this. I'm going to add it back here. And I'm going to add the camera as just a public game object. So that I can remove this. Because I have a feeling it can't find the camera because it's a disabled object. So we might need to just reference it. I really want to just get the player spawned. Oh, we actually haven't set the keys as well. Let's just real quick, let's go ahead and just add camera, and let's set our keys as well, because we actually want to be able to test whether we're actually moving around or not. So forwards is W, this is A, I don't know why I select W, and backward is S. Alright, so hopefully the camera enables now that there is a direct reference to it. Honestly, my main goal here is to see if we can get 2 players in the scene. Okay, so it's not actually. Your event is not being sent. Check if you're in a room. So weird. So, multiplayer manager, we're first joining a random room. If it fails, we create a room. Does the lobby or room automatically get destroyed when you switch scenes? It's interesting. So, if we just trying to think how to do this, we might need to let me see if this will work. So if I copy and paste this here again, and on the start, join, and we'll have to call the uncallback. Is it? I don't remember what it was. Let me just quickly see. Oh, it's behave upon callbacks. Lowercase b. Yep. Okay. So you want to be using real time, and you don't want to load any scene here. Instead, let's just go ahead and spawn the player as soon as this room is created. I might just give it a different name, just in case something weird happens. So I'm just gonna quickly see if that will spawn the player in an actual room, because it seems like the room isn't actually being made or kept anyway once we switch scene. So we may get into a problem where we need to spawn the players into a kind of white room and then switch scenes. So you are now connected to the photo. Okay. So now it's worked. It's actually found the camera. Oh wait, hold on. No player though. Client is not on master server or not yet ready to call operations. Wait for callback on joined lobby or on connected to master. Interesting. Alright, so void on sorry. Excuse me. So public override on joined lobby. That's what it wants us to do. And then let's go for the instantiate. Let's do this. Let's see if we actually get the player to spawn. Damn it, still got an error. Join random room failed. Client is not on master server or not yet ready to call operations. Wait for unjoined lobby callback. Or wait. Weird. So can it not create a room? Right, I'm trying. I don't think this is how you do it though. Because the lobby is created after the room, isn't it? I don't know. We'll see. So, oh, hold on. I never removed that. I think I did. Let me remove this. Alright. If it still doesn't work, then we'll try the other idea. This is, yeah, so this is basically how I do my tutorials. For those of you who are new, I don't do any planning into them, so that if I run into problems, you guys can see how I fix the problems. But if you guys want me to make more planned tutorials where I literally just pre-plan the entire episode and make everything and then remove everything once I know it works, and then basically just show you guys how I did everything, I can do that as well, no problem. Okay, so it's still giving me that error. So let's go ahead and remove the join on start. Instead, we want to join on lobby. And then create the room. Is that what it wants me to do? So let's give this a shot. Right. Yeah, no. I knew that wasn't going to be the right way to do it. We're getting no warnings, but it's because nothing has actually been called. So this is a real weird situation here. The reason this never ended up working, or the camera, sorry. Okay. Yeah, so the reason why this was never called before is because we're not connected to the Photon servers, so it doesn't actually know if it's local or not. So I'm going to remove all of this. Just going to put it back to the way it was. Oh. Keep all of that. And then... So... this is interesting. How... I did it in my first tutorial. Let me literally just see how I did it in the little cube game that I did with PlayFab. So let's see here. Oh, hold on. So we have Andre and failed. Create room. Let's try this. Let's call the override void for onJoined room. Then once we join the room, let's call load scene. And let's see if that works. Maybe we're loading the scene before Unity gets a chance to actually connect to the room, which is why it's giving us this problem. Let's log in. Connect into server. Hey, okay, there we are. Whoa, I'm super fast. Alright, I was just using the wrong callback, so I'm actually pretty happy it was only that simple, but you can see now how simple things can be to really just knock you off your block while you're coding. So in MP Manager, all we need to do is onJoined room and then load the scene. So that is super awesome. Now we want to... Oh, the reason why we're moving really fast is we haven't actually normalized any of this. So time.delta time, we want to times all of the move speed. Basically what this would do is make sure that everyone stays at the same speed and it won't depend on your frame rate. So if we have a one player that has like somehow 1000 FPS in the game, he's gonna literally be looking like he's hacking, running through everything. Whereas if we have some kind of old Windows XP system, if it can even run the game, probably going to be running at 20 frames per second and you'll be super slow. So if we do this time.delta time, it will basically make everyone move the same speed and fix all of our problems to do with that. So that should now make it so we are at a nice speed. Let's just go ahead and run to make sure. Excuse me. And then if this runs in Unity, we can go ahead and build a copy and see if the two players actually join the map and spawn. Yeah, there we go. That's a more decent move speed. Might be a bit too fast still, but I'm pretty happy with that, not gonna lie. So let's go ahead and build the game. Super exciting moment in everybody's life. Okay, there we go. Takes so long to do everything. I'm starting to think it's more my computer than it is Unity, because I haven't like cleaned my computer or anything like that. It's just been building up so much junk files, and it's probably just slowing everything down. Alright, as you can see, we now have the login button and whatnot in a nice size. We can now log in with one account and log in with the other account. If we create or join a free-for-all, we should be able to move around. So go to this one. Hey! Should be able to move in both screens. No problem there. There we are. We have successfully... It is a bit choppy. Wonder why that is. Hasn't really been that choppy before. That's a bit interesting. We might need to, if it stays this choppy, we'll code with it for now and deal with it. But if it stays this choppy, I might need to show you guys how we can create a custom script that will sync our position for us. But I mean, there we go. We are currently connected in a completely different map. Two players can join and see each other. Photon is still instantiated correctly and running. So we actually have no spawn time. So if we go to our scene again, what was it? Game modes, free for all, game manager, and let's say we set the spawn time to 3. And let's go and we'll just load it from Photon. We don't really need to log in yet because we've got no logic that we need from PlayFab. It's just simply to switch. If we create and join, nothing should happen for 3 seconds. There we are. Awesome. So let's go ahead and go back to game modes. We want to create well, this video is going on kind of long, so I'll quickly do this and then we'll end it here. So I want to create some text. Again, this canvas will need to be set to the resolution of your screen. Well, it can be any resolution, but I like setting it to the resolution of my screen so it works correctly while I build it. But if you set all your anchor points correctly, there shouldn't really be any difference between any screen resolution or scale. Yeah, so gonna go ahead and scale this text. We'll center it, make it larger. And you know me, I love my outlines, so gonna make the text white, and I gotta add that outline component. And we'll just make it a thicker outline once again. Honestly, I think either 2 or 3 is the most optimal outline you can get. So I'm just going to say spawning in, and we'll have our counter there. Another thing we want is an actual lobby camera. So, where is it? 3D objects. Is that what it is? No, down here, camera. So we want a camera. We're just going to call this lobby camera. And we're simply creating a camera so the players can actually see this text. So, in our, let's see, our game manager, let's create a public game object for our camera. I'm actually going to name this to lobby camera. Also going to be using Unity engine dot UI, and we'll make a public text. I'm gonna call it what was that? I'm gonna call it spawn countdown. So when we initially start, we basically want the lobby camera to be set to true. However, when we spawn, we want to set the lobby camera to false. We also want to, the dot set active. We also want to say, so underneath the timer, spawn countdown dot text equals spawning in plus timer, and let's round this. So mathf dot round, so we don't get any of those float numbers at the back, and it should just be, you know, just whole numbers showing. So that's good. And the last thing we want to do is, after we have spawned, or rather, no, yeah, after we have spawned, we want to call the spawn, what am I doing? The spawn countdown dot game object, and we want to set the active to false. So let's go ahead and give all the variables needed to make this work. So we want our lobby camera and we want our text. So let's spawn this and go back to our photon scene. Connecting to server. Great, let's join free for all. There it is. Oh, it's it's a count up rather than a count down, but we can fix that later. As you can see, worked fine. If we go ahead and build and run, so we'll have this over here and the other here. Log in, test 3. And then we have our other account here as well. Another thing we can do is set it so after, say, 2 minutes there, we can have nobody else can actually join the game. But now let's just do that. We spawn in, there we go, 3 seconds. If we move back a little, and we shouldn't see this character spawn until 3 seconds. There he is. Awesome. Now we have a spawn timer, and we'll probably end up making an actual function that we can call that'll kill the player and then reset everything so he respawns after X amount of time. But there we are. We've come a long way from just our playfab little login and alert messages to actually now instantiating and networking a scene change. So using this method, you can go on and start setting up basic scenes for, I don't know, team deathmatch. What other things are there? Conquest. I don't know, maybe battle royale if you really wanted to do that. But yeah, we've done quite a bit. Probably spent like, what, 15 minutes trying to figure out that error. But now that I know that I was actually using the wrong callback, so make sure you don't spawn anything when you first create the room. You want to wait till on room or on joined room. So after we've actually done that, it's all working now and super awesome. Super hyped that I actually fixed that pretty fast as well. So that's it, guys. For the next tutorial, we're gonna be looking into maybe synchronizing shooting. We might even make a different position sync script for Photon, because it seems like this one is pretty choppy. So maybe I'll even teach you guys how to do that. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a great deal. On top of that, if you guys want any extra help or just want to chat with me, go ahead and join the Discord server. So yeah, that's it for today.